Good evening, everybody. Welcome in Chat 10 Sports. I'm riding solo, guys. We're here to talk all things Tennessee Titans because, my goodness, the sky is officially falling in Nashville. A lot of somber expectations for tomorrow night for Thursday Night Football, which we'll preview here. And there are so many things to talk about. So stick around. Let me jump on here and throw our intro video up, but check it out. And thank you for joining Chat 10 Sports. What's up, everybody? Welcome into a brand new episode of Chat 10 Sports, where we're talking all things Tennessee sports and everything in between. If you're watching us from Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, we do invite you to chat with us live, so make sure and keep that thing live. And if you're listening to us, be sure to follow, subscribe, rate the show, and if you're watching on YouTube, hit the bell for notifications. But folks, with that said, without further ado, let's jump into a brand new episode of Chat 10 Sports. Yes. Good evening. It is a solo show. My name is Trey Winn. I appreciate you joining wherever you're watching from. Obviously, we are on YouTube. We are on Twitter tonight. We're also on Facebook. So if you're watching with us, I see Steven Snyder's already jumping in. Appreciate you, sir. So many things to talk about tonight. So I wanted to, kind of it's that weird week between the holidays, right? Nobody wants to go to work, and nobody wants to talk about a just disappointing football team. And there are so many things that we could talk about as to how we got here. What are we doing now? What do we do with our hands, kind of thing? Ricky Bobby, if you will. But the Titans have a lot happening, and it could go obviously two ways, but 1,000 different ways from those points. With the obvious Thursday Night Football matchup against the Dallas Cowboys as the guys get ready to go out tomorrow night at Nissan Stadium. I don't know who's going to be there because almost everybody I know as far as a Titans fan is either selling pointedly at Cowboys fans, since they are the crazy people who are probably going to take over. I mean, I think it'll be just an outright home game for the Cowboys, and if I'm being honest. But we'll talk about it because here come the boys, and who knows what's going to happen. But I want to jump off the top here because there's been a lot of conversation this last week for a lot of different angles, from last week's loss and how Malik Willis is the man and should be the man, and all these different things happening. Obviously, injuries have led the Titans to this point where you're so hamstrung offensively on top of an already existing issue that we all know about named Todd Downing, that somehow, some way, you just continue to move forward. And unfortunately, the offense cannot do much, and neither can the defense now because, again, the injuries are incredible. I'm going to throw up on the graphic here and show you what we have for, let's see here, make sure I got the right one. So the Titans injury list, which we all know is a dreaded time of the week. It's unfortunate, but here we are. Danico Autry's doubtful. And from there on, let's see, Christian Fulton doubtful as well. And Derrick Henry doubtful. I think they've since announced officially that Derrick Henry will not be going. But Dylan Cole, Cunningham, Bud Dupree, obviously Amani Hooker, Nicholas Petit-Frere, Tannehill, Josh Thompson, Jeffrey Simmons, and Aaron Brewer is a full participant because thank goodness we have Aaron Brewer to come in here with us to just allow Micah Parsons to run train on this offensive line. But the big concern, obviously, now is we all anticipate, I think everyone is on the same page, unless you're just a straight homer, which, hey, do your thing. But at the end of the day, when the Titans are lining up on Thursday night, my question right now, because I've seen it both ways. I've actually heard and I've gotten rumors from everybody, and everyone has their opinions, but there's conversation of expectations for Dobbs to have some playing time. I've even heard it rumored that he could be starting. Obviously, Malik Willis is, let's see, I think Buck Rising on 104.5 The Zone today talked about how he's played in 8 games. He started 3. He has yet to have a game where he has thrown over 100 yards. He had 99 last week. Obviously, I mean, the Dennis Daly issue continues to unravel. And I'm thinking now, because what was it? I mean, obviously, Ben Jones, Nate Davis is out. You got Jordan Roos going up there and starting. Corey Levin's starting as well. And it's like, what happened? Is it a karma thing? I know there was some conversation on Twitter from several people of just how do we get here? From a John Robinson firing, it goes way back to an A.J. Brown trade, and it all unfolds here and now where the Titans are hamstrung to a point that they are fighting for the division, currently in second place behind the Jacksonville Jaguars. Not to toot my own horn, but honkity honk honk honk, Because your boy here has been saying all year, don't sleep on the Jags. I thought from the beginning of this season that Urban Meyer, the removal of the cancer that Urban Meyer was from the Jags, gives them life. Trevor Lawrence has been, had a solid year and I think higher than expectations, if we're being honest. But it's one of those things for me. I do not want to sleep on the Jags because the defensive front against a atrocious offensive line, even with Chip help, Dennis Daly can somehow get beaten. But all that to say, we're in a situation now where they're legitimately wagering the entire season on the Week 18 matchup against the Jacksonville Jaguars in Duval County in Jacksonville. And at the end of the day, I've got people saying this way, that way. Should we win? Should we try to compete? Should we get the playoff spot? Even though almost unanimously, everyone is out here saying it is a one and done at best. Nobody has a realistic expectation. Again, Homer's out there, shout out. Appreciate you tuning in and hearing it. But realistically, this team is not able to put together. We're looking at a 6-game streak right now of losses underneath Mike Vrabel, which is obviously the first time in his, I think, entire career where he's had, I think there was 4 other instances, if I remember correctly from what I saw on Twitter today. But obviously new things for the Titans. This is new for fans, where it's like, well, we anticipated the bottom was going to fall out at some point. Didn't think it would be quite this fast because, again, 3 weeks ago, John Robinson was fired. And we're 5 games into a losing streak, and we are literally like sand through someone's fingertips, losing the division to our one of our most hated rivals. And it's an unfortunate reality for a lot of people, Mike Vrabel included, where the frustrations just, it's like Shrek. He's an onion where he just peels back and more things that you unveil, because even if you have the personnel, even if you have the talent, Todd Downing hamstrings the offense because he can't feel the beat of the rhythm of what's going on offensively. Again, Rex Ryan said it last week, where the guy's rhythm and the ability to read the room. Why is Derrick Henry off the field on 3rd down? Realistic questions that we as Titans fans have been asking all season, actually the last couple seasons now. The predictability of the first down run, the swing pitches that just do not work. And obviously now you're missing so many freaking offensive weapons, let alone offensive linemen. And I mean, what could they do right now? I don't think magically in a week resting everybody's going to get you where you want to be physically, to then wager whatever progress they've made and probably make them go 75, 85% or whatnot. But how much do you want to really wager guys going out there who are already injured to wait a couple weeks and get your ass kicked again? I don't understand the logic there. And that's why, folks, I am here to say, whether they want to do it or not, the Titans are going to lose out and close the season out with a 7-game losing streak. And that's okay. Realistically, I think a lot of folks are overreacting and saying, again, whether it's tanking, I know Gavin's up in here with us saying need to take 100%. And let's see here. You did call the watch out for the Jags on our podcast, and I laughed. I was right. Thank you, Blake Rainey, for coming in here, and I appreciate you joining. But it's all that to say the Jags have they're playing good football right now. They on a Hail Marys, type of play of a last-minute defeat of the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, that's something that, again, they're the type of team where I think they get to the dance and they could actually make a push because they're playing good football. Now, my thought for the Jags this week, they're going to be playing the Houston Texans, and Doug Peterson has come out and said, we're not resting anybody. We're pushing all of our chips in because we don't have a insignificant game or whatnot, or all games matter. It's like that whole cliche. And I get it. Mike Vrabel is at a point where you're back so far up against the wall that you have to make the decisions of moving forward to win games, because Amy Adams Strunk just fired John Robinson because they don't want to be mediocre. But it's unfortunate for Mike Vrabel when, we're sitting here talking about the reality where they cannot string an offensive drive together, where I think they're averaging, if I'm looking correctly, I mean, even in these losses, they're putting up 14 points against the Texans, 14 points against the Chargers, 22 against the Jags, 10 against the Eagles. And I mean, you look back through the record now, and they're losing to really good teams, and they're barely winning against teams that are not very good at all. 9-point victory over the Colts. 7-point victory over, the Texans. Commanders, they won 21-17. Raiders, 24-22. Fact of the matter is, in my opinion today, I understand we've had winning seasons, we've had playoff appearances, and I get all that. It's wonderful, but that's what's so difficult for these teams to be able to maintain this. Now, great question here from Gavin Jones coming in and saying, what's the difference in draft picks if we miss the playoffs? Right now, estimating from anywhere from 8 to 10 spots where you're looking right now, I think they're in the low teens, floating around that area. And of course, 1,000 things could happen. So if the Titans do make the playoffs and they do push forward, they could potentially be in that 20 spot where, again, like we've been in that mid to late 20 range. And I think that's a part of John Robinson's struggle of either trying to trade out of that area or trade the pick away completely. And it's like, or even move up. It's such a hard position because they were so hamstrung for draft picks, draft capital as it was, that here and now you have to wonder how they want to play it. And I think they're going to try and do everything they can to say we're not taking, we're not giving in completely. But again, like let's not completely lose sight of what we're doing here. And it's unfortunate just simply because whether you look at it from a winning mentality and the stubbornness and the brute force of this sport, at the same time, I forget who it was. It was the Jets. It was a highlight I saw of the punter. I think it was late last year or 2 years ago, where his single tackle on a kickoff return, which he was the last line of defense. If I forget who they were playing, but if they had lost that game, the Jets, they would have sealed the first overall pick, and they would have been in line for Mr. Trevor Lawrence, which here and now he's looking pretty solid. Zach Wilson, obviously on the other end of the spectrum, is not having a great year. Most likely they're going to be doing away with him in the offseason as far as the Jets, which again, like that whole market, that whole culture up there as far as media, I'm surprised. Again, he's embarrassed himself at times, but he's not performed well on the field. So it's one of those things for the Titans even now. Talking earlier about the Cowboys coming through, talking about Josh Dobbs potentially seeing some playing time. I know a ton of Vols fans would love to be able to see him in two-tone blue and to do that. But realistically speaking, I think you're just simply seeing what you have in the garage, if you will, to see what's got some torque and what has some horsepower to be able to try and spark the offense. Because Lord knows, I mean, if Derrick Henry's on this field, Treylon Burks is out there. I'm sure Bobby Woods, Bobby Trees, or whatever we're calling him, because he's been a Bobby Sleeves, a disappointment for the Titans this year. But what can this offense really do? I know questionable report from Micah Parsons, which I think that's just, it's just football. Leighton Vander Esch will be out with a neck injury or whatnot. So they're not missing a ton of people from what I have seen. But at the end of the day, I think the Titans are obviously looking at a loss tomorrow night. And like I'm saying, in the idea of draft picks, it's just such a hard place to be in. I don't know if you guys want to chime in if you're watching with me, or if you're listening after the fact. Hit us up on Twitter at Chat10 Sports. Hit me up at Trey Winn. But the Titans are in a situation now that if, regardless of how it goes, whether it's a first round appearance in the playoff, they get booted, or you hit the offseason after week 18 is over, you're looking in a situation now where it's the soft rebuild, it's the retool, or do we lean into a full-on rebuild and just blow this thing up? Because a lot of folks talking about the big news today that the Raiders are no longer going to be starting Derek Carr, and they'll be going with Jared Stidham, and that is basically a full-on move for them to commit to moving him out this offseason and preserving his health, and obviously helping him have as much value as they go into the offseason, because they're going to be shipping him for, whether it's a Josh McDaniels and him not grooving or jiving or wants a fresh start or whatever it is. But he's been reported today that I think he even left and went home, not to be around the facility or whatnot, to be a distraction. But now a lot of Titans fans are crying for Derek Carr. Even Chris Johnson today, CJ2K, coming out on record and saying this is the guy that the Titans should push for. Colin Cowherd as well, saying that he is a franchise quarterback and someone would be smart to move forward him. Obviously, I don't agree. I think you're basically, if you're a Titans fan, I think you are so much better off with Ryan Tannehill for so many different reasons. Carr, I believe, just signed an extension or whatnot, so I don't know what the differences are off the top of my head as far as cap impact and things like that. But Ryan Tannehill has been with this team now for some time, and even restructuring, his contract, even to be able to spend the time and with God bless if it's Todd Downing, there will be riots in the streets, but whatever continuity you can have, Ryan Tannehill offers you more so than a Derek Carr. I don't think Derek Carr's, significantly more talented than Tannehill. I don't think that he's a guy that you're going to be, you know, it's more mayonnaise to me. It's just one of those things. Like it's just so bland. It's so black and white. Like it's just not fun to watch. And if we're going to do anything, because I'm in the opinion right now that Malik Willis ain't the guy, and I don't think this magically just happens where it's like. And here's the thing. I'll put an asterisk next to what I just said. It's really difficult to judge anybody on this team, coaching, player wise, I mean, all of the above because of how bad the personnel group is and how bad the roster has, diminished to this point. I mean, I think today I was looking at the roster, the depth chart, and I'll try and count it up here. Dontre Hilliard, Cody Hollister, Kyle Phillips, CJ Board, Taylor Lewan, Dylan Radins, Nate Davis. I believe Ben Jones is out as far as IR. That's offense. So you're looking at 8 players on offense that are on IR. Deshaun Hand for the defense, Harold Landry Jr., the third, David Long Jr., Terrence Mitchell, Caleb Farley, Elijah Molden. So significant. Like we know the extent of the injury issue with the Titans as it is right now. It's really difficult to judge Malik Willis as it is with what he has. We've already known the issue of Treylon Burks getting cracked in the Eagles game and still no punishment, no fine, no nothing for the safety that hit him, but clear helmet to helmet. Obviously, he was unconscious for, I don't know, maybe a few seconds or whatnot, but all that to say, what has Malik Willis had? And even for Derrick Henry, if he's supposed to pull pressure off of Malik by having a running game, the offensive line is absolute garbage, so he can't do much. Jeff Swaim's your best blocking tight end or whatnot. So all that to say, but it's very difficult to judge Malik Willis. That's why I think he is now. You're handcuffed to him for at least one more season. I really don't think that this is a Madden universe where they're just going to ship off Malik Willis, because here's the reality. You got a guy, and he fell. He was a first-round projected guy. He's very raw, as we've all seen and said. But you got a guy in the 3rd round. He's unpolished. Now, he doesn't have the type of talent you would want. That is the risk I feel of any of these young quarterbacks going to these horrible teams in the top 10. Like Will Levis right now, Kentucky bias and Tennessee bias and all this. I was never impressed by him, but if he lands with the Colts, ugh. So I was recently watching the 30 for 30 talking about Marino, from Elway to Marino, like one of my favorite 30 for 30s, which Chase and I have considered. And we were talking about little offseason stuff of doing some deep dives on those and breaking those down. But the talent in the quarterback, world right now, they need to be taking a page out of John Elway's book and Eli Manning's book to say, no, I'm not going to play for that team. No, because some of these situations, like Kyler Murray, the whole narrative has changed on him, right? Like, does his team even want him anymore? I heard Colin Cowherd say, which again is a point for Derek Carr. Like, if a guy's a winner, cool. If it's a system thing, cool. But if he has the ability to sling the ball, and if the Titans were to commit to changing, I don't really think that you can move. I mean, you need every draft pick that you could get. You need every salary cap dollar you can find. And I don't think Derek Carr matches that for that side of it alone. I don't want Carr over Tannehill. That's just my opinion. So all that to say, it's an interesting position for the Titans to be in going into the offseason. Still no GM for anyone keeping, I know we all in the Titans fan base community in the world sit out here and know everything that's going on. In case you're a moderate fan or whatnot, the Titans just it could be a full-on mushroom cloud explosion just of the roster, and it all depends on who this GM is going to be. And salute to the man for what he did, just like Mike Mularkey and just like a guy like Marcus Mariota. You got us out of the depths of the cave, and now we can see some sunlight. And we've been out here for a while now, but we want to go to the top of that mountain. And all that to say, I don't know who and how. I know I've shared my opinions in previous podcasts as far as who I would love to have, but so many outcomes are potentially there based solely on this GM. Now, is Vrabel going to give Stretch a guy, or a consideration, or as Amy Adams Strunk, I should say? Who knows? But that's going to be a huge tell. Now, if I'm the GM sitting back here and saying, here's the roster I've gotten, here's our cap situation, let's take a look at what we can really do so we're not completely dropping off, because I fully believe in 3-4 years, whatever time it is that this new stadium's going to be built, the Titans want that Super Bowl caliber team. If we have to be 500 or a little under 500, what it looks like for this year and maybe next year, to absorb the blow of that, I get it, but that's an interesting spot for them to be in. I'm not the type of person I think you have to completely overhaul. I think guys like Lawan, I think he'll retire. I think Derrick Henry is a guy. I don't know that he has much value given his contract, but I think he's a guy that you could potentially part with. And I think Tannehill is a guy that we've got to have to either bridge the gap to see what Malik is for a season or two. I think we've already done that. We've seen a good bit of him, and it's not been good. But again, I mean, and it all depends too. Like, what is Mike Vrabel going to do with Todd Downing? I know a lot of people out here sitting and talking because Mike Mularkey kept old Terry Rubisky around, and he got canned for it, that Mike Vrabel is somehow going to be on this hot seat. I know several people, considering the outcome of just I don't know what you want to say. It would be just the recency bias of our last, head coach. Before, it's the same situation. We had a terrible, outdated offense that was not successful, and the offensive coordinator, the loyalty there with the coordinator is what got the head coach fired. I think Mike Vrabel is fully aware of the position and the power that is basically at his fingertips right now, and the pull that he would have with Amy Adams Strunk to be able to really get whatever he would want when it comes to how much pull does the GM have? How much pull does he have? Does he have the final say? I mean, we don't know the ins and outs, and I don't care who says what about the draft. Like, we're not going to be able to fully know Mike Vrabel's position, even based on his just abrupt, stand and taking a lap kind of thing in the draft room with John Robinson after the AJ Brown trade. But they were in it together, right? They were in cahoots, they said. They talked every day, they said. How much of that is on Mike Vrabel? I don't think he's the reason, obviously, they're in the position they are right now, because you just can't. I don't know what kind of karma came over the Titans where these injuries just keep them down. But all that to say, if Todd Downing's on this team, I genuinely believe that Titans fans, and as they are right now, I've got a good friend of mine, and he's just like, dude, I just don't care. I really just don't have any interest, because it just seems like they are content with this. And it tells you what they're doing right now, simply because they're resting everybody they can today to be able to go out and say, look, week 18, and this is what really sucks about this. I get why they're doing what they're doing. Imagine getting swept by the Jags. Whew. I don't think Vrabel wants that on his resume, but at the same time, like, what can you really control? So again, like, not to talk myself in circles, but I do want to say the division even too, because Steven Snyder on YouTube here brings a good comment saying Bryce Young or CJ Stroud are screwed because they're going to Houston. I don't know, man. I think the division is changing. I think we have a horrible division at the moment, but obviously they're going to be pushing hard from the Colts to have they're projecting Will Levis, obviously, like you said, Bryce Young or CJ Stroud going to the Texans. I think the organization sucks, but when the Texans have had a good athletic quarterback at the helm, you can never count the Texans out. And obviously, the last few weeks, these losses and two division opponents now that we've taken losses to in recent memory or whatnot, but we're looking at another one coming up here in a week, and it's an unfortunate reality to really tap the vein and say, what are we? What are the Tennessee Titans? And the Tennessee Titans are a 500 team in a very bad division. And that's where this pressure, I feel like, is on this team to make the impact decision now, to push the chips in and say, look, the window might be closed for this year or next year potentially, but we're not going out swinging. So interesting time. I'm going to check my little outline I made here to make sure I'm not losing anything I wanted to talk about before I cap this. This is fun here to kind of do it solo. Not to say I don't want Chase here to bounce off with, but yeah, I think we've covered it all as far as just injury issues. If we've covered, I mean, John Robinson's continued, the ghost of John Robinson, I should say. And then going into these final weeks, my expectations, I hope that I'm wrong. I hope the Jags just, I mean, find a way to play horrible football. And there's so many angles that you could take it and saying the Titans have been in situations we know just a few years ago where it was week 18 against the Colts and the Titans just completely crapped the bed. But they've been winning some games. Obviously, Vrabel, and this is the weird part, Vrabel knows how to win games. But this season, man, it's been real bad. And it's unfortunate, too, because, I mean, let's see here. Chargers game, lost by 3. Texans game, lost by 5. Bengals game, you lose by 4. Obviously, the Eagles just kind of beat the crap out of these guys. But it's one of those things. I don't think it's as bad as we think it is as far as the issues and the roster issues because of the amount of players that are on the IR, that are out. And obviously, every year is going to be a new group, a new roster, and a whole new team. And unfortunately, like some of these, I mean, I think Lawan's, setting himself up to just fade off into the Barstool sunset, which there's no issue with that. I just don't realistically think that he would sit down and say, I'm going to play for $10 million this year to put myself back out there. And that's all on the contingency of him feeling good enough to do it from the beginning. So all that to say, let's take a couple comments here. Steven Stunner coming again saying, we might be shocked Tennessee usually wins on Thursday night games, even when they think they won't. See, traditionally speaking, yes, like these are games that the Titans shouldn't win, and they do, and they find a way. Prime time, I mean, the Cowboys are just too damn good. That defense is just already stifling. I think Micah Parsons is going to have a night, and it's going to be on prime time. And Kirk Herbstreit and Al Michaels are going to be talking about him all night. And oh man, Kirk Herbstreit is out here on these broadcasts, and any opportunity he gets to talk about Tennessee and just, throw whatever shade he can at them, he will. So I look forward to hearing that about how bad this team is tomorrow night from his perspective. Yeah, Micah Parsons coming from Gavin on Facebook. Micah Parsons might be the best player in the NFL. And it's crazy to think how young he is, but all that to say, I think I've touched all the bases. I know next week, obviously, or this weekend, college football playoffs are starting to kick off and a lot of bowl games happening right now. Talking to Chase and the guys with Channel and maybe having some spaces or some conversations about that as we go this weekend. But keep an eye out for that. Make sure and follow us on Twitter, on Instagram. If you're on Facebook, make sure and follow. If you're watching us from YouTube, if you're not watching us from YouTube, go to the YouTube, subscribe, help us to grow the channel there. And as you can see, subscribe, rate, and share. Please help us grow. But also, if you're listening to audio, make sure to follow. If you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, make sure to give us all your ratings and feedback. We appreciate it. But I'm going to go ahead and cap this puppy off. I'll throw our video out here so you know how it is. But I appreciate you joining. I hope I'm coming back on Twitter or next week on this podcast to say, we were shocked to see the Titans come out and beat the Cowboys, because you never know. We've seen crazier things happen. Let me think about that real quick. We've seen some crazy things happen, but I don't know. No, I think we're in for it tomorrow night for real. But then if week 18 pans out, we'll see. Appreciate you guys joining. Tighten up, everybody. Hope you have a great rest of your week. Godspeed. Tighten up.